Hello everybody, right, I'm here today with Lindsay Brown of Concordia Nova, and she's going to be telling us a little bit about her business, kind of what you do, in a kind of elevator style pitch I suppose, but you can imagine we're going up the Eiffel Tower so you can have a little bit longer than a minute, and then really we're going to deep dive into what your long-term plans are, maybe some of those hurdles, so the kind of classic podcast type stuff that we do here. So Lindsay, tell me a little bit about Concordia Nova and kind of what its journey and what you do and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, Concordia Nova itself is a startup, but I am also an exited entrepreneur, exited founder of previous businesses. So I've come back to launch this year, earlier this year, to help businesses who are at different stages. Predominantly, I'm focusing on the exit stage. Preparing, getting them ready, getting them prepared for the best, smoothest process, best valuation, and then what happens afterwards. When they're in their new chapter. But I've seen that from starting up or scaling up, you need to be having a long-term goal in hand. And even for myself, with my own startup being an HR consultancy, I've had to question myself, well, what's my end game? And so it helped me remodel, which I'll go on to later, what I can offer, and would this be a viable business to sell at the end? Because I have to walk the walk myself.
So you were doing HR?
I've got 35 years HR at senior director level.
Yeah. Okay.
My last role was global head of HR for a SaaS business software, which we sold to venture capitalists.
Okay. And you were part of that kind of exit strategy sale, or you had another company that you've exited?
No, I was working
as well?
for them. I was brought in to scale them up. My first remit was to double in size. It was based in London.
Yeah.
And I also opened new frontiers. So we opened in Singapore, Poland, Greece, New Zealand, which, it sounds opening. It was, for me, of HR, it was, obviously all the compliance and payroll.
Yes.
It was very basic. But, and then there was some restructuring happening as well. And then we continued to grow. We grew organically, not by acquisition. And then in 2020, we'd just gone into lockdown, and the boss says that we're going to market. So that's when, I was pleased. I had been there for like 6 or 7 years by that point, that I had got everything quite ready. I didn't really I knew they would exit, but I didn't know when. Yeah, that's when it happened.
Yeah. So I guess, have you mentioned that you've kind of built up and exited. Is that something else, or was that part of that?
And then another example is my family business. So at the beginning of my career, I left education with a degree in business studies, and I started working for my father's business, which was started by my grandfather. And
Long heritage,
and I'm talking like early 20s, and my brothers were working there, and my cousins and everything. So we were third generation, and we sort of found our way. And I had an office-based role, admin, reception, switchboard, accounts, marketing. The business was a construction company, and I did do some marketing as well. I used to come down to Sussex to talk to the water companies, and I was selling sewers. So a 21-year-old girl selling sewers, it wasn't glamorous, but it paid the rent. I did it. And I had been working there in my summer holidays, so I knew the business well, and I'd grown up with it. The company grew, and I was asked to become PA and office manager. So I've always had really sort of clear organisational skills. And then when I was late 20s, I just said, to the director, you need someone to do HR or personnel here, because we had 500 employees and there was no one knew what they were doing. Yeah. And I could see the chaos. And they offered the job to me, and it wasn't really a career decision. But that careers can be squiggly and wiggly. It wasn't how I'd set out to be, but actually I really enjoy it because I love psychology as well. So I went and did night school and learn on the job. And within 7 years, we had 3,000 employees. So that was the scale up, and it just took off. I was just at that time, my father had researched, we were always a telecoms contractor since the World War II, and he'd researched cable in America and brought it to Britain, and was we were first to market putting cable TV in. Okay. Cable TV became the internet, which, as anyone knows, you know, if you need water, gas, and internet, you know, it's a basic utility.
I think probably the internet appears above water in most people's conception nowadays.
They can live without heating. They can't live without the internet, the connectivity. You know, it started as the TV channels. You know, it was the pipe that brought in all that pipe TV, because back in the day there was only BBC and ITV. Yeah. And then on all the local channels, and then. So that's why we grew so quickly. But with a scale up, you know, you have to look at the market you're in. You could be at the point where you saturate, and what next? Yeah. So, you know, we were aware of that as a family. So we were very busy and making a lot of money. But what was next? So we diversified, and we diversified into wind farms. Okay. So applying this, so cabling on the street, we took it to the railways. Yeah. So we're doing signalling on the railways, electrification, and we knew that once the cable was put into Britain, you know, we started doing a little bit of work abroad, but it's hard to break into a new market when you're not a local firm. And we were quite busy on our home territory. And then, so we diversified, so we were multi-utility and rail contractor. Yeah. So I was the HR director, and also did, you know, because we grew so much, I had to grow an HR team, so I had regional managers, and I looked after the top 50 managers and directors. So for a long time, I've always looked after, or from day one as a PA, I'd always looked after main board people, or C-suite as they call it now. And so that's been my life. Yeah. And what happened was the exit was, I was a shareholder as well. And in 2017, we did a trade sale. We were acquired strategically by Kia PLC. Yeah. And for many reasons we sold. And I have written about it as well. It's quite nice at the time, you know, it was happening and everything, and now a few years have passed. I'm writing about family businesses and what life is like afterwards, and that transition, and why you would sell. And you know, family businesses are caring businesses and everything. So you know, we cared about our pensioners, and we cared about job security. And it was really interesting, that transition, to go from a private limited family business, and we were families within families as well. There wasn't just the Nicholas's, it was lots of families. With the transitioning to a PLC, when we announced it to the staff, you know, nobody likes change. There's a lot of fear. And like, you know, the family have gone, and we'd been trading for 60 years. And, you know, you just sell it to them, saying, this is a great opportunity. You're going to work for a PLC. You're going to have so many more. In a small business, there's not many opportunities to grow, or there's limited budgets for training and development. So once they had that, you know, that's an opportunity for me. Some did fall away, but others have stayed, and you know, I still follow them on LinkedIn, and they've become directors in companies and everything. And so, you know, 8 years have passed, and you've really seen the ones who stayed, you know, have done really well. Yeah, and it's wonderful.
And the ones that didn't believe in it, they've gone on.
Well,
to
it wasn't
other
for
things.
them. You know, it's about culture fit as well, because. You know, there's a culture change when you've been a private limited company, and then you work for a PLC, and it's all about your share price and things like that. It's like, this is so different.
It is massively different when it's driven by any form of investment or investors or PLC, shareholdings, whatever it might be.
There was culture change in Polestar, the software company I just finished, because we was bought by venture capitalists based out of Boston. So my remit was to double the size of the headcount-wise of the business. And they, from day one, they just announced, we will own you for 5 years and you will grow fivefold.
Yeah.
So that's the pace. The pace really increased.
Yeah. Okay.
But we also we secured some good contracts at the time. Yeah. So there was opportunities to grow.
Yeah. Okay. So lots of experience in this kind of industry, circuit, whatever, this kind of build it up, sell it on the HR side of things and the rest of it. So where does that kind of leave you now? Where does Concordia Nova fit into that? So you've had the exit and then you've founded this startup?
Yes, it was because, I retired a few years ago. I don't need to work, financially sorted. But people were up calling me or texting me and saying, can you help? Can you help? And I was like, I haven't worked for a couple of years.
This is like as a consultant role?
Yeah,
like
HR.
As in they're thinking, I want to build up exit or something?
No.
Or from HR point?
So I'm a post-exit entrepreneur. Okay, and because the software company had shares as well. And I was like, it's great having money and free time. You can travel, spend time with your family, pursue a hobby or other opportunities, and you'll find your way, and it's what suits you. So I explored charity work, I explored education, and the traditional ones. And I'm my dad's daughter. I'm an entrepreneur, I can't help it. And I think the business background, and I've always talked to business people, and I missed it. I have been an HR consultant before, and I think it was for about 4 or 5 years, but I went back to directly employed. I missed being part of a team, and I really enjoyed that. So now Concordia Nova, which I've started this year, will be advising founders and teams on trying to pass on my lived experience. I've made mistakes, and they're the best lessons I've learned. And I wanted to sort of like guide people, and it's tough. Business is tough work.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your sort of target market, is it the owner that wants to maybe like exit? They know they want to exit in like 3 years' time, but they need to get their ducks in a row. Or is it the person that has no idea what their exit strategy is, or maybe they've got no intention of selling anytime soon, but they might need to prepare, like they need to, like a lot of people, I always say, like, run it like you could sell it tomorrow, even if you've got no intention of selling it at all. So that, which is,
well, it's any life cycle's got a beginning, a middle, and the end. So that's what you've described. The startup we talked about. I had a conversation with a startup a week or so ago and asked the question, and they already had an exit date, which is great. So it's structured for that long-term goal. The middle time is still forming, and it's successful. So it's like growing, but to what end? And I was to what conclusion? What is the outcome going to be? People might want to grow it, so they want to pass that down to their kids. So that's a lot of succession and sort of handing over through the generations. Others want to grow because they just love it. They love work. So it's like, well, that's fine. But at some point, none of us get any younger. We can't avoid death and tax, unfortunately. So at one point, you get to a point where this is part of my retirement plan, is to exit my own business. Instead of just winding it up, is there value there? Can it be passed on? And that's part of the planning process. I mean, the best client for me is someone who's 2 years, 2 years before exit, because 2 years gives time to not just change leadership. It's looking at key person dependency. It's looking at the culture. Even with affiliates, I can talk to the brand, digital footprint. This all adds value, because traditionally I think people just went to market thinking, I've got 3 years healthy profit and loss balance sheet, and I've got contracts and I've got future earnings and goodwill and everything. which is great. And the lawyers will say, you've got a shareholder agreement, you've got mem and arts, all that, everything. But to add value, especially in the service industry, is all this. And if you're a big, you are your business, so you're not that sellable, because it's like a buyer won't buy you because you're too intrinsic to the business. So you have to start detaching your brand, so the brand can be disentangled, so it can stand on its own in the entity, because you're selling the entity. Or, it's like, have you got a consistency of message? So the digital footprint would be, going through, is all your messaging aligned? And then, the third, it's not just the people, as in, this year we've had a lot of like cyber attacks and disasters like floods. I mean, you're in the property game. I'm sure you've had the odd flooded flat or something. And it's definitely a disaster recovery plan, and we had to have one for the software company, and that's interesting. And HR involved in that. It's not just your firewall. It's like your people response. Are your people trained that they're not handing out passwords and leaving the back door open for floods or hacks and everything? And this all is, if you can get belt and braces all covered, prepared, then you go to market, you've got a very good offering. I mean, look, Matt, you're in the property game. You know about preparing, staging a property for sale or rent. Yeah. You don't just open the door and just say, come and have a look. The owner would get it ready. Yeah,
it's exactly that. And I think a lot of people, as you say, fall into that trap of my P&L looks good, and they might even have a little bit of advanced knowledge of like EBITDA figures or whatever, but they don't actually really understand any of what gives them intrinsic value. And also what private money would be looking at, like the amount of, I mean, we've grown through acquisition as much as organic growth as well. But the type of businesses that we're acquiring are like sub 10 employees, and then they're bolting onto us because they're very easy for us to just kind of merge into our existing fold and then go from there, sort of thing. But those bigger companies, they're not interested in those like sub 10. They want people with management systems in place and all that kind of stuff. Like the type of businesses we're buying are the one we target them because they probably don't know what the value is, and they probably just want to get rid of it because they want to retire, or they've had enough of it, or the staffing issues have become too much, or whatever it might be for them as individuals. They're not necessarily entrepreneurial people. They've kind of fallen into that business market, as opposed to that might be like your sub kind of £500,000 turnover business. Venture capitalist money is interested in your kind of $1 million plus, maybe 2 million or more. Because you've got all those systems in place, and those people start to recognise what they need to have for intrinsic value. So I guess you're kind of bridging the gap between the people that our target market for an acquisition, and then say like where a bigger firm needs to be really, and you're kind of getting them ready, whether that's a growth strategy or just getting their kind of systems in line or whatever.
And I'm not like a woolly sort of person talking about culture and all that fluffy stuff. I think because I've always been brought up in like the engineering sector, I take things in visually. Although I write and everything, I like to see. That's how I learn things. So when I work with a client, I'll do all the analysis, and then they would get. I call it the heat map, but basically it's the top 5 things that need fixing first. And it's a visual. It's got pie charts and graphs on it and everything. So it can go into a board pack if they're saying we need, or investment pack. And then the woolly thing about succession planning. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm just going to pass this business on to Joe. It's like, what are the steps? Because a lot of the problem with business owners is they struggle with letting go. And I was talking to someone yesterday who was actually retiring, not selling her business, but it's like, the decision to retire, because in the UK you can retire at any age. You can retire at 70 or keep working if you want,
or 17.
Yes, or 35. You can retire, whatever you want. But it's the decision to retire isn't just like a snap decision, and it will take months and everything, because it's an emotional release of letting go of my day job. Questions like, what will I do with all this time? What will I do? It's also identity. So I do an aftercare kind of coaching session about, in that new chapter you've sold. Can you imagine you've won the lottery, and you've got this big fat check of millions of pounds and everything, and you can quit work tomorrow, but then what do you do? And it's also coming to terms with your new life, and there's tax advisors and wealth advisors who protect your investment, but it's just your sort of mental health as well. I'm going on about mental health, but it's people need a purpose. They need community.
I think massively so.
And identity. We meet. Hi, Matt. My name's Matt. What do you do?
Yeah.
You immediately got it. I run this property business. When
I
you're
think
not, it's like you're filling out a
yeah.
form and you haven't got an occupation.
Well, people, I think there's a couple of things you touch on there. So, people retire or exit their businesses, and then they're like, there's only so much golf or hobbies that I can do in my spare time, and then they become quite bored, really, and entrepreneurs are wired up a little bit differently to your general person, because they just get bored and they need something in their life, whether it's charitable,
little project.
Yeah, it can be charitable work. It doesn't necessarily have to bring income in, but they need something to do. And just rewinding a little bit, so many of the people that come in here, I would say at least 1 in 5 podcast things have this issue where the business is all about them, and they're going through this transitional period of thinking, what's my exit? Whether they want to exit and go into something else or exit and retire, but they are the pivotal point in this business, and that is a really risky thing for any business to buy. It's a problem we have when we're buying those small, it might be like Fred and Co lettings or something, and we're buying it and it's all about Fred. Fred's been there, he grew it all up and the rest of it. All the staff love Fred and the rest of it. It's a massive problem for me, and having to explain that to Fred in this example, that actually when we buy it and it all changes, we are likely to lose staff and we're likely to lose customers, because there will be a culture change, because Fred can't be here. The only saving grace is if you're going to come and work for us for a year and slowly exit out of it, which sometimes happens, but the general rule is that there's a lot of people in that boat, I would say, that kind of revolve they've created themselves a job, essentially, as opposed to a business that's sellable, because they've never been able to kind of disconnect themselves from it.
The letting go is massive, and they just don't. I mean, I know managing directors who just don't want to let go, even though they're in their mid-60s now, and they're because they're just frightened of what's next. And the young entrepreneurs, saying, "Oh, great, I'll retire at 40, I've made millions, and I'll go and play golf every day."
Yeah.
Their friends are still working.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. It's the people who are free during the week to play golf with, they're too busy working, and
but they need that, though. I find a lot of people, a friend of mine, he had a telephone voice, the cloud data for the telephones and stuff. He was in that line of business, and he very early on he'd sold a small share of his company to a much bigger firm, just to get the startup off the ground, and they had the right to exercise the right to purchase the remainder of the firm. And of course, as the booms of online telephones or digital telephones has creeped in, they've decided to exercise their right. So they forced the sale, basically. So he exited, he had got a chunk of money and the rest of it. But he's like, I could retire off of this, but it's not really enough money to retire anyway. It's that kind of I've got £1 million at 40, but actually if I need a 40 grand a year salary, I'm only going to last, whatever, how many years, 10 years or something on that, or whatever it might be. And there's not enough to do, so I've got to do something with the money, and then, and you're bored as well. There's 6 months down the line, bored out his brain, because there's no one to play golf with, as you say, and there's only so many things that you can do that don't give you ultimate satisfaction. It is a great problem to have, but I think that...
And nobody has any sympathy for your friend.
No, exactly. Except for those in the same circles, I suppose.
Okay, you've got money in the bank and time to play golf, and you're upset. I mean, because he'd get no pity.
He doesn't get pity from the general working person, that's for sure. But I do feel the pain, and that's quite a common thing for people to have, that they're like, I'm bored, and also I can see that I'm going to get to about 60 and that £1 million is going to be gone because I've got no other sources of income. I'm just bored basically. I need something in my life. So they started up some app company, took a non-executive role in another business and so on to fulfill him. Probably doesn't work as hard as he used to, but he's got something to fulfill his kind of...
He's got a purpose. He's got an identity.
Purpose,
and he's got a project.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's what's right for him. So it's interesting that your friend did cloud telecoms and telephones, and then has stayed in tech and business. So it's where he's comfortable. Yeah,
it's app-based stuff now to do with local areas to pull in all of their... I'm not entirely sure what it does, but it basically pulls in all of the things that are ongoing in your local community, so you don't miss out. So it's quite easy to be like, oh, I wasn't aware there was a fete down there, or I wasn't aware that there was, I don't know, some event going on. So they pull that centrally, but it's then farmed out like it's the app for your local town, but it's obviously part of a bigger system. So.
But going back to your point about you're growing your business by acquisition, you're sort of picking up these small little businesses locally, or you're doing it geographically, I'm guessing. Yeah. That's happening more and more now because it's harder to build revenue and sales through business development. It's easier to just do acquisition. And so I'm seeing more and more exits happening, or that M&A work. I'm also seeing, if you think about it, so people are having their children later. Yeah. It's quite rare for someone to get married in their sort of teens or early 20s and have babies straight away. Back how it was in the sort of 50s, 60s, 70s. So if you roll that forward, if you're having your kids at late 30s, early 40s, and then 20 years later, you're hitting 60 and you're thinking, right, I'm getting tired now, I want to start retiring. And you look to your kids, they've got no work experience, they've only just left education. Yeah. So you have that gap. So it's the family might go, well, we're just going to have to sell. Or what's happening, it's like, I wasn't involved in this deal, but it happened to this the company my son works for, is they couldn't pass it on to their child, so they've done an employee ownership trust. Yeah. So it's planned. It's keeping. It keeps the people in the business. It's an exit plan and retirement plan for the founders, and it's tax efficient, and it's a 7-year rollout. Yeah. I think it's 5 or 7 years. And they're becoming more popular as well. Yeah,
I think there are good strategies for people that kind of have this business that's based around them as well, that's hard to pass on. But I do think there's a lot of people that are in that boat where even if their kids are a bit older, their kids just don't want to do it. It's not a generational thing anymore, and that is a cultural shift in society that I wanted to stand on my own 2 feet. My dad's done, I don't know, building work forevermore. Well, I wanted to be an architect. Okay, it's loosely connected to the building and you are influenced by your parents, but that's a professional job in an office as opposed to plumbing in a bathroom or building an extension. Yeah. 2 different complete
I tell you, I did not want to sell sewers. Yeah. But needs must. I had to pay rent. I was renting a flat I needed a job and I would do anything. And, I mean, even for the 4th generation of my family, I mean, there's 13, on the 4th generation, there's 13 grandchildren, and, one of them is qualified quantity surveyor. Yeah. He could have gone into the business, but, sometimes when businesses are too big, they just don't want to take on the responsibility. Yeah. It's daunting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if they haven't had that kind of spirit.
If you think of monarchy, you've got the bloodline and stepping up to take the throne. It's like, it's daunting. And, not for everyone.
So I think we'll sort of move on to maybe like what your plans are with with the startup.
With my own, it's good actually. I'm analysing my own startup.
Yeah, I think
I'm advising other startups. And what about you?
I think sometimes that's what happens. It's a bit like when you get some people on here, and then when they write it, they realise that they didn't really think about stuff, and as they write it, it kind of changes a bit, and then so on. So it's quite good. So. Goals for the next year or so: establish Concordia Nova as a recognised name in HR consultancy for SMEs, family businesses, build a consistent client pipeline through networking and strategic partnerships, leading the way with the HR readiness assessment as flagship service, production, regular leadership content via LinkedIn and so on. So basically kind of next year is kind of groundwork, I suppose, if you want to summarise that kind of into. I know you've written a lot there, so, but
it would. What normally happens, you'd work on a retainer, so you would work, and some things can be quick fixes, and then it really depends on the client how long you want to work together for.
Yeah.
I mean, I could probably only work for about 3 clients at the same time because it's quite intensive, especially if it's around an exit. So that's what I was saying, you know, I am developing tools that are downloadable, so they'll be available on my website next year. So like a self-assessment tool.
Yeah.
So it's products I've already developed for my current clients, but if you wanted to, if a business owner wanted to, like, am I ready for selling? You know, I might know I might have a clue about my EBITDA valuation and everything, but am I ready? And it's an interactive tool that they can use to say, I'm only 50% there. Yeah, that's what because that's my, you know, when I was saying I'm trying to work on my own exit, so I've only got a finite time that I can give people, and so if I can create other materials that are sellable and can pass on, so my end game, which I know you're itching to go on to, is to find HR consultants like me who understand this niche market, and just saying, you know, I need to affiliate. You know, will you buy in? Whether it's the franchise option, I'm not sure. You know, there's also a book being written. You know, that's something else that's sellable, and I'm writing 2 actually. Well, the first one is for business owners, you know, like we've talked about today. But the second one is actually for in-house HR, because in-house HR, they're running the HR operations, so they're recruiting, you know, disciplinaries, they're doing employee benefits, employee well-being, you know, the standard day-to-day stuff, and they're always busy people. And then their boss says, we're doing a mergers and acquisition, and it's a big project. They've never done it before. It's not taught in CIPD. And there's lots of stakeholders to manage. And you have to work on this project in strict confidence as well. You're not even allowed to tell if you have an HR team. Yeah. If you're lucky to have
you're
one.
not allowed to tell the rest.
Yeah, you can't even tell them. So they're just looking at going, why is she so stressed?
Yeah. What are you wasting all your time on? Yeah.
Why is she asking for all this weird information and like pulling data here? So it will be a book and training course for HR people on how to go through a mergers and acquisition. Okay. I couldn't find it in the UK. I found it in America. There's a mergers and acquisition roundtable for HR professionals, and we meet monthly, and we talk about this stuff. They tend to be bigger businesses who are acquiring all the time, but this is what we debate, and it's run out of the University of Illinois. Okay. So I'm trying to get their best practice, because I've only got my personal experience, but I think there'd be a requirement for it.
Okay. I did wonder about that kind of intrinsic value, franchising, or getting people involved in it thing, because on the next bit, which is your more longer plan stuff for the next 3 to 5 years, you've got to develop an associate consultant model. I think I'm glad you touched on having something like a login area or some sort of training course or whatever that is a tangible thing to sell on, and for associates or franchisees or whatever terminology you might want to label it. To buy into, otherwise it does have the danger of becoming all about yourself a little bit and
finite time.
Yeah, and then you have something intrinsic to sell on to another consultancy, or maybe those people that you involve will want to purchase it off of you as well. In that right, so that you can do that exit. I think those training courses and stuff, although the internet is littered with them, but if they're done in the right manner and they serve a purpose, they are really quite valuable. And as you probably know, they are a one-time event only. Once you've done them, obviously there's a bit of maintenance, but the bulk of the work goes in at the start, and then it's a drip feed of top-ups, and therefore you've got that ever recurring income stream from that. We've looked at doing stuff in our own business for perhaps clients that want to manage their properties themselves or do things themselves, but actually you could sign up to a subscription so that when you're stuck with something and you're like, really, can't find the information on the internet, or I need someone to explain that in plain English to us, there's actually a service you can sign up to. And it also captures people that are, for us anyway, for necessarily they're like, we can't afford your services anymore, we're going to do it ourselves, even though we don't really want to, but we're having to for financial reasons. Then we can actually say to them, well, how about this service? You could sign up here, it's £50 a month, so it's a quarter of the price of what you're paying existing, but it's actually all the tools you need, and then, in a jokey way, maybe you can come back for a job at a later date.
I attended your talk on fire doors.
Okay. There you go.
At the Grand Hotel. I found it very interesting.
Yeah. So it's that kind of stuff that if people would be able to log on, and then they can learn what their responsibilities are, as opposed to just completely losing that client and leaving them to do their own thing, make a mess of it, and then come back to us 3 years later, and then we've got more of a job to do. But the point of it is, as a business model, it's quite good, because then people are just paying you like a retainer every month. You're not having to start again every month.
It's common knowledge that to get a good value is to have recurring revenue. Yeah. We were lucky. So construction company, you're thinking, where's the recurring revenue? They just build stuff. We had maintenance contracts, and some of them we held for 20 years, with utility, so blue chip clients. And so they loved that. So yes, we all built a project, like we put all the utilities in for the London Olympics. So all the toilets flushed in the main stadium. This was, we actually, because we laid the sewers for it. That's very important when the whole world is looking at you. You don't want to have a flood on your opening night.
Yes, yeah.
So, but the other contracts were just held for years. And so when we went to market, we could say our predictive order book was rock solid. And then the SaaS business that was sold was subscription-based, $50 a month per item. And we'd been trading for 20 years. So we had all the history, and it was just growing and growing and growing. And it was just, we achieved such great valuation. Yeah.
I think that's important for people to recognise what people are going to look at. From an investor, like if you're going to look at a company, think about what they're going to want to see. And people don't think like that at all, like that recurring revenue stream, not having to fight for it every
I had to think
month.
about it myself. Recurring revenue for me is retainer. Yeah. Because, clients like me, got to have Lindsay, I'll pay you X amount a month and just do what you do. But it's like, well, what else, So that's why I was thinking about the training courses, the book, downloadable tools, which is a one-off purchase. But if they like one, they might come back and buy another one and everything.
You could do talks as well.
I am doing talks.
You're doing talks, yeah?
Yeah, so I'm the gigs I've got so far, besides today.
The talks always become about you. That's the only slight issue. Like if you have like once or twice a year, you have like the kind of mergers and acquisitions, do's and don'ts seminar or something. It does become reliant upon you.
So it's wealth managers. They often host dinners.
Okay.
So I'm doing a talk next year
More kind of intimate talking.
That's quite an intimate one, yeah.
Okay.
And then another one is a network of family businesses.
Yeah.
Because they want me to talk on succession.
Yeah.
It's the hot potato.
Yeah.
And that's quite a big audience. And then I've today's podcast, and then I have another one that I've invited to, and she's a psychotherapist for family businesses.
Okay.
So I was thinking, she's going to, the HR psychology part of the family business, and she's like, no. I'm interviewing you on your life and times of being a member of a family business. So yes, we'll see what that.
The ups and downs of that, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, and being, it's a struggle. I was the only female in the male industry as well, so I had that.
Yeah, originally selling sewers as well.
Yeah.
Back in the day. Okay. I think. I mean, you could consider talking to a wider audience or appearing on some people's. There's a lot of. I think you'd have to be selective about which ones you went on, but you could put yourself in front of the right people where they're having like a business masterclass show, and then you might be a section of that, and they would pay you to come on and sit on a sofa and talk, and then there'd be other business people in the room. So there's a few avenues with the speaking which would assist. The intimate ones are quite good, but I think to get a brand out there maybe, or something that can be kind of intrinsically sold on, or to add. The danger of them is it does become about you, obviously. So you'd have to kind of figure that out. But I think it's an excellent opportunity for you to push the kind of subscription, these services, subliminally when you're doing that, really. I
mean, I'm passionate that the fact that, you're in the property game, so you really understand this about, you always say, selling your house is biggest asset, I'm selling my big asset, I'm going to stage it and everything. Yeah. A homeowner might sell half a dozen times as they go up and down the property ladder, but a business owner probably only does it once. So they are unprepared, unaware of what happens and the pressure they go to. I mean, you've been acquiring, so you're seeing it from that side of the desk. Yeah. And the only way I can relate it to is anyone has been through a divorce. Going through a divorce can hit you on emotionally, financially. Yeah. It's really stressful. Your whole life changes. You have to often you have to move as well. So it's sort of physical location. And anyone who's been through a divorce doesn't really want to do it again, or have learnt lessons from it. And although divorce is quite a negative analogy to a business sale, it's of that intensity. That's what I'm trying to explain to people. Yeah. Yeah, and
it's having a purpose, then having it switched off is a feeling like you're being married and being comfortable, and then you're not in that. You're thrust back.
And you lose your identity after a divorce. Often you sort of
you can't remember who you are. And also a lot of business owners, they were Fred, who was the letting agent, and that's what they've done in the local town for the last 100 years or whatever, 30 years or something. They've lost their identity. They can't remember, and sometimes that's when they discover all the things that they haven't been doing around themselves as well, like their family have all kind of forgotten who they were and all the rest of it. So the business sales can, like, I've had people when we've acquired and then they're like, I didn't realise, like, I didn't really have a very good connection with my kids going. I'm now trying to infiltrate that, essentially, like spend more time with them.
That's it. You're right. I mean, that's part of... So I did the heat map, which to analyse where your sort of glaring people risks are. Yeah. And then the aftercare, I have something called the heart map, which is like...
that sounds very...
It sounds all like lovely, but it's also, how good is your number one, maybe you're married or a girlfriend or whatever. Because they will have suffered during the sale, and then, or they're just not used to you being at home all day. Yeah. It's just like they used to go to the office, and now they're just under my feet, driving me mad. Yeah. Or you said about the kids. The kids have grown up without you, and then suddenly, the stranger wants to play with them. It's important. I mean, when I was a consultant the first time, my son was 13, and he'd just gone from junior to senior school, and one of the reasons I did it was because I'd worked so hard as an HR director for the family business. I was not a good mother. I never took my son to school. And, you know, at 11, 12, he was like, Mum, I just want you to pick me up from school once. You know, I'd never done it because I'd always been working. And I had that guilt. So I stepped away and freelanced so I could work around the school hours and just be a better parent. And I think teenage years are critical. A lot of people, you know, they take time off for maternity leave in early stage, agreed. Yeah. But, you know, with the transition to senior school, they often, you know, lose their friendships, their hormones change, you know, they're forming into adulthood and there's the rebellion and influences going on and everything, and it's good to be around for your kids. It's important. It can really affect them.
Yeah, definitely. I like the idea of the heat map. So it is
heat map or heart map?
Heat map, heart map.
Well, that's I do also think mapping that, where you're at. Because like I've explored, as I said, personally, I explored charity work, education, but hobbies. But what sits with me, you know, the pace and what was going on in some sectors, I just felt like a fish out of water. Yeah. You know, the intention was good, but it just wasn't right for me.
Yeah. So, the idea is to kind of stabilise it into some sort of profitable enterprise that you can sell on or get people involved with.
My pride wouldn't let it. I couldn't run it.
Maybe sell on
this
or
is not
involve
for profit.
Offer into other people's. Obviously, some challenges that you feel you might face on there. Balancing delivery work with business development, ensuring that I stay visible, proactive. Obviously, we're talking about the juggling of like growing the business and actually doing the actual job of the business as well, which is intrinsically hard when it's a startup and you have to wear many different hats.
That's it.
I guess accelerating that, in my opinion, to the point, because all this stuff here that I've done, I left a partnership, if you don't know, to go out on my own, and that was a startup at the start, and I had to wear many different hats. But I kind of recognise, more for the viewers, because I'm sure you probably know this, that in order to become the business development manager, which is really what my end goal was, because my time is best spent doing that rather than issuing works orders, answering the telephone, getting keys cut or whatever it might be. Those are necessary right now, but it's a case of grow the business as quickly as I possibly can, even if that's at a sacrifice of me earning less than minimum wage out of this, because I believe in the business and this will work, and that by making these investments over the first couple of years, where maybe some of the people are actually on a higher wage than me, staff-wise, actually eventually that will return back to me. So I'll be able to get into this point. And I think a lot of people get stuck at that hurdle. So a lot of people are like 1 or 2 members of staff, and then they can't like get out of this, I'm the operations person and I wear the... open the front
Anyone
of the door.
In that situation, I recommend they read the E-Myth book.
Yeah.
That'll help them.
Yeah. I mean, I find that a lot with people, that they've just created themselves a job and they can't get out of it. And I think a lot of people, I say, sometimes you have to employ these people, even if you can't really afford them. Yeah. You're going to have to pay for it out of your own pocket, but it will pay you back if you believe it's going to work.
It's so nice to have someone to delegate to. I took on a PA last month. When I wrote the form, your application form, I hadn't started yet. The intention
you wrote
was
and then you thought you needed a PA.
I literally did it that week. I was like, I can't do everything. I was juggling too many things balls at the same time. So I have a PA now, and I've tasked her with key tasks. But I have my own plan. I know who I need to be appointing, right down to a data analyst. Because although it might turn out that they're all affiliates or something, so I'll be able to. Another reason I'm networking, because I'll need you. I'll need you. To grow the business. I'm also lucky. I have another business that I started 13 years ago. So I've got a property business as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is recurring revenue. I get the rents coming in every month, and that's so. Although because I'm in startup phase, I'm not making enough to sort of warrant all that I'm spending on marketing and promoting myself, I'm being funded by my other business.
Yeah. And I think that is a very nice place to be in, and is a similar place to myself, but a lot of people are not in that position.
No.
They've left
I've
a corporate job, and they've gone on to set a business up. They're a bit stuck with it, and they've got to like 3 employees, 4 employees, but they're still doing the VAT return. They're still opening up the shop at the beginning of the day or whatever it might be. So that's, that they've just created themselves a job at that moment in time, and they need to probably invest some of their own money back into the business. And that's quite hard, because you feel like you should be rewarded for your hard efforts. But I think anybody that's got residual income, there'll be a lot of people out there who have probably built up a small property portfolio, and they've got enough to cover their wages. Maybe they had a goal, the classic kind of, you see it all over the internet, how many houses do you need to replace your income, then you can retire. A lot of people do that and then don't retire. So I think they're like kind of hidden entrepreneurs, because they had this goal of like having £4,000 a month income. They've got their 10 rental properties making 400 quid, but then they don't leave their job anyway, because they're like, well, they're actually... They're
guilty.
Yeah. I see it loads, because they then go, I quite like having the both sources of income, and this job doesn't seem so pressurised now, because I've always got that to fall back on. And probably not that often people actually go, do you know what, I'm going to hand my notice in now and sit on my bum and do nothing.
It's wonderful to have that financial independence, because I've had it for some time now, and in my last role I was so confident at work, because if they did, I had no fear of job security. Because if they did fire me or make me redundant, it didn't matter. And it made me being much more forthright. So I wasn't like, careful what I say to them, because I reported to the CEO, but I became his sounding board, because I would be forthright with him, because I didn't really matter. I wasn't sort of,
it didn't matter to you,
it didn't really matter. I wouldn't be rude, but, disrespectful, but I would say it is.
You could be honest, and if you became, in their eyes, a bit of a pain, and they were like...
You don't want yes men all around you, do you?
You want people that will push back at you, and then you can data gather on all those pushbacks and make a decision.
Not so much challenging, more like pointing out, or have you considered,
Yeah, I think pushback is, I like that phrase, because it's like you as a CEO, you decide to do something, maybe not considering all of the various departments or implications it might have further down the chain. People might push back to you and say, have you considered all of this and the rest of it? And you have to be educated by your team. You chose them, or choosing them.
And if you think of the structure of an organisation, it's lonely at the top of that pyramid. So that's why, they'll use a non-exec director, or they'll have a chairman or something, or they'll have an executive coach and everything, because they don't want to discuss their insecurities or moments of imposter syndrome I wrote about last week. So, because, they're still human, and the imposter syndrome, that seems to be a hot topic at the moment. I think I wrote about it last week, just on a personal experience. So it was when I got the invitation to speak at the Network for Family Businesses. I was like, agreed to it, and then I went to walk to the train station, and I, on my 10-minute walk to the train station, went, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And I was like having to coach myself, talk myself, like, this is just classic. I've got so much experience, and then I doubt myself. So I wrote about it, and my brother, who was CEO of McNicholas, and then went, during the earn-out, went to Kier and stayed with Kier. So he was executive director of Kier, and he's now a non-exec and a chair and everything. He rang me that night, it published, and said, I get moments like that. And he's top of his game, you know. It's just, it's strange. The other thing I wanted to say is I was talking yesterday to a copywriter, because I'm refreshing my website at the moment, and she said, you're trying to get across your experience, you're trying the 30 plus years experience and everything, and it's like you don't want to bore people with that and everything. And so we talked about, got the T-shirt, being there, seeing it done. I got the T-shirt and everything, and I said, it was a bit like my sons are keen Arsenal fans. I'm sorry if anyone's not an Arsenal fan listening, but there's a great documentary about Arteta, their coach. And I think it was filmed on his second year, so it's probably about 2 seasons ago now. And it was filmed in the changing rooms and how he was coaching the team and what he wanted in it. Arsenal had been in the doldrums for years, so it was. Anyway, they're now top of the league, but he'd played for that team. Yeah. He'd got muddy on that pitch. He'd sweated and cried for Arsenal, and was a retired footballer, who multi-millionaire, Spanish. Yeah. He could have just stayed on the beach in Spain, but no, he said, I want to coach. And that's great. So the players believe in him, and we've seen the outcome. And that's what I was saying about the aftercare for founders. It's like, what have you got? What are you passionate about? What can you give back? Tech entrepreneurs are good. It's really common in tech to help coding and give back and everything. It's been so open about that. It's not like I've got these skills and I'm not sharing it. It's the culture's completely different. So they're more open to it. I think standard business people, I call sort of non-tech, they probably more go down, similar to me, the consulting route or non-exec route. Yeah. I was asked why I don't do non-exec work, because I've always worked at board level, and I said, well, they don't want HR people, they'll want operational or finance non-execs. That's the pretty standard, but not necessarily. So I think there might be some rare opportunities for some
I think there
network.
are some opportunities in there. So I would say depends on what they feel their problems are, I suppose, doesn't it? There's all well and good having finance and operational people. If the intrinsic problems are HR related, then that they need to be probably educated to realise that. But if they were, then that would be a non-exec role.
But most business owners have problems with their people. Yeah, we're not easy.
Incredibly so. It is a big challenge part, and to be fair, it's one of the main reasons why those small SMEs that we referred to earlier that we're acquiring, they sell up because they are worn out by staffing issues. So and so won't talk to so and so, they don't get on with each other. One's got paid slightly more than the other and they think that's unfair because they've told each other and all this kind of stuff, and the owner is just worn out by that. That is probably in the top 5 reasons, I would say, as to why people want to sell up. So,
and I found it really easy, actually, an HR consultant to parachute in and just see it as it is. I'm not emotionally involved. It's clear, and you're respected when you've come into a business saying, look, I've been around and I've dealt with bigger problems than this, and you just cut to the chase and just they respect it. I mean, there's some. When I started Concordia, it was because of conflict. My first 3 projects were all employment disputes and conflicts. So I was thinking, this is the route I go, and I can work in that area. But what happened was there was a conflict between 3 shareholders. So I was looking at that. So it wasn't really, they weren't employees, manager and subordinate sort of issue. It was the conflict between that and everything. I mean, it's fine, but one of the outcomes, I said, this could result in the business being sold. If you're not talking and not getting on with each other, that's the exit. It's I mean, that didn't happen, so fortunately, but that's what got me thinking about it. And then it was pointed out to me that I've got unique experience, and to differentiate myself against other HR consultants in the area.
Okay. So, I think your final bit was your third biggest challenge, managing time and energy across the complementary ventures with my HR and the property business and the rest of it. Always a challenge. But I guess if the kind of key takeaways for the audience are about that recurring revenue streams, whether that be property or whether it's from some kind of training courses or whatever, where people are dripping in, is a really good tangible model to have recurring income, but also something that you can easily kind of sell on, really, and not to be caught in that trap of like it's all about you and then you can't get on. Like I've referred a lot to Fred, the letting agent, who's completely made up, if anybody wonders, but that's stuck in their business and the rest of it, but they've got to a certain size, so to kind of try and avoid that at all costs. Or if you have found yourself down that road, then look at kind of a staff buyout, really, where you might fade away out of it.
So there's management buyout. There's if a vendor, so it's sort of the owner asking the managers if they want to buy it out, and then there's the employee ownership trust, and they all. I mean, there's just several different exits. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Well, I feel like we've covered quite a lot. At the beginning, off air, you said you had some questions for me, and it's tradition for me to ask the guest if they have any final questions or anything. So I don't know. You may have already discovered them during this conversation.
No. I did a bit of research.
Okay.
So I went through your YouTube.
Yeah.
And you had lots of guests, and I've listened to a few, and a couple of them I know.
Yeah.
But I went right back to the beginning.
Okay.
I want to see where you're from.
Yeah.
I was intrigued about the company name.
Okay.
Charles Cox. Was this a partnership? Was it his dad's business? Was there a Mr. Charles Cox or something? No. And
right.
I found it.
So for anybody who's watching, the very first video I think on this channel is about me and essentially launching it. Yes. The bike shop. Bike shop dream to entrepreneur or whatever it's called. Yeah.
Brilliant. And that you did your degree was in media.
Yeah.
So this probably I'm assuming that because of your love of that, this is why you do the filmed podcasts. Yeah,
essentially, I did media and business. It's basically marketing and business at university. So I did everything from law and statistics all the way through to marketing and video editing and all that kind of stuff and things. So it was quite a wide degree. But at college I did media studies, so that's where that kind of comes from. So
and look, you're doing it now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, although I don't edit the videos anymore, but I think for me it's more a case of it's part of a business development role that I have, because Charles Cox isn't the only thing that I do. I've got multiple other businesses and property stuff as well. And I think that my brand as a person is what I wanted to get out there as well. So I've always had this, like, not an end goal necessarily in mind, but always had this goal of, like, I don't want to be creating something that's reliant upon me being in it. So this profitable enterprise that operates without you in it.
So were you inspired by, like, Matthew Bartlett?
Stephen Bartlett.
Sorry.
I guess so, a little bit. Obviously, he's quite a lot younger than me. I think he's not even 30, or maybe he's about 30 or something. Maybe he's a bit older than that now. I don't know. Time flies, doesn't it? But, I think watching my parents grow up and my dad and stuff, that they were really hard workers, and I had a lot of that installed in me. My dad was made redundant, and he took his redundancy pay, bought property because he realised that he could have that residual income, so he wasn't so reliant upon his job anymore. He built that up to a small portfolio of around about a dozen properties, and that always gave him the security. But I always recognised that he still only worked for a company, and they could make him redundant again, or there's not always that security there. And they didn't have like an exit plan for any of, like, they weren't like build a business and then sell it or anything like that. So I thought it's a bit of a funny situation, because you work for this massive blue chip company for all your life, and he's like middle management in the UK. So a fairly senior job, but not like exec level. And you get your retirement gold watch or whatever they give you at the end of it. And then you have your pension and that's that. You haven't really built anything. You spent your whole career assisting them building that. Wouldn't it be better if you had something of your own? But then how do you exit that? Because like Mr. Phillips, he worked for Phillips. I know he doesn't, probably not even alive anymore, whoever Mr. Phillips was. But I thought, at some point, like surely he exited or the staff bought him out or something. So it was just a very like intrinsic kind of question in my head, I suppose. Naming it Charles was a conscious decision for numerous reasons, but one of which is so that I'm not as connected to the business in its own right. But yes, for those who don't know, my dad's name is Bob, which is nothing like Charles, but inspiration did come from that upbringing, I suppose, and what you see around you, really.
That's the same for me. That's why I didn't just go Lindsay Brown Consulting, you know, So I chose a company name, and I chose it. So I worked on it for a week, and I was trying to bring in my personality and experience, and what I wanted, my values, you know, because I will talk to clients about that. And I've had the beauty of not having to work for the last few years, and you get a lot of freedom, and you can spend time exercising and travelling and doing your hobbies and things like that. So I kind of, when I set out, I was thinking, I don't want to be working an 80-hour week again. Thank you. Yeah. I do not want to burn out. This is crazy, because it would be of my own volition as well. So it was set out that I wouldn't work full time, and which is why I have to limit which clients I work for, because. So I wanted balance in my life. I've always thought about work-life balance. So I didn't want to be called New Balance, because that was obviously a footwear. And wanted it new because I had this new concept, because I couldn't find anyone who did what I did in the UK. And then I just translated the names in Latin. So Concordia Nova means New Harmony.
New Harmony, okay.
But I didn't want to be called New Harmony, because it sounds like a sort of well-being
yoga doesn't it?
Retreat.
It's intrinsically difficult. I mean, the previous podcast to you had named their business after the engine size of a car that they really loved when they were a kid, and there's a big owners following to. I don't know anything about this, it's just in their thing, but it was a combination of, I think it's 427 from memory. I have to look back, but I thought it was something to do with 24/7, as in like how hard they worked or something like that. So it's difficult when you're naming a business to make it kind of universal, if you like, in its appeal.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of psychology of the names as well, but I have like my business card and obviously my website and my email address and everything. It's actually a daily reminder for me to say, balance, Lindsay, balance. You know, I could be working till 8 o'clock at night if I wanted to, but it's just like, no, you need downtime and everything, and it's like, especially if I have to sort of coach myself.
Brilliant. So, just to wrap up, was there any other questions other than kind of a bit about my history, I suppose?
I haven't asked you much because I did the research. Well, I want to know where your business is going next.
Oh, okay. Well, we've got an actual podcast coming out with Terry where she sits in this seat and interviews me. So there'll be a lot more information on that. But I suppose, in answer to your question, it's always a journey for me of like... we're very much a kind of acquire, build up, and try and run it so that we can sell it if an offer comes in or if an intrinsic thing changes. But it's always, that isn't necessarily what we're looking for. We're not putting it like on the open market, but we run it so that it could be sold and it's profitable enterprise and it's tidy as much as we can as a trading business can be. With that end goal in mind of any capital that we either earn or produce from a sale generally gets either reinvested into acquisitions for other parts of the business or into property as slow building pounds, essentially.
When you can you imagine your home, like someone slips a note under the door saying, I really love your house. I'd like to make you an offer, and we could do it privately, not use estate agents. And they're making you a reasonable offer. It might get you thinking, and this can happen in business. Someone might approach you and saying, "I liked what you're doing at Matthew Cox and Charles Cox, and we want to acquire you, and we'll offer you X." And it starts the thought process going. But really, if you prepare well and have it as a plan, right, in 2027 or 2028, you're doing the big exit, you would do all that preparation work, go to market, get several viewings like you would if it was an open house. And like property, they're only as valuable as people are willing to pay for it. So if you get a couple of people are trying to outbid each other to get the exclusivity days, then you get a better deal. And that's better. And also you could pick, because they don't just offer you cash. Some it will be a mixture of cash or shares or whatever, and earn out things. And it's it's a bit of a mixture. And you think, I've got to do all this stuff to prepare for sale. Even if you don't sell, you'll be running your business more smoothly. Because you'll have got better people and better systems in.
Exactly, I like your analogy of the note slipping under the door thing, because in our ecosystem, the way we would run that is that a lot of business owners, if you take that analogy, they slip the note under the door and then they say, "I'd like to make you an offer." But of course, they're making an offer fairly blind. They don't know what's behind that front door.
You might be having a bad day and they want to pick it up cheap.
And you open the door and the place is messy, dirty, needs redecoration or whatever. That is like opening your books and they're all in a bit of a mess. You know what's going on and how things are going to do, and they're going to get tidied up at the weekend, and husband or wife's going to redecorate the front room. But that's what they can see. That's the equivalent of opening the book. So the way, in my business analogy for that, is we always try to have the house in showroom condition, so that if that note slips under the door and we're like, we hadn't thought about an exit for another 10 years, but that's a good offer, then when that door when that note comes, and they come to look at it, they're not on the start, we're going, "Oh, well, we can't quite figure out what's going on in your books. Your house needs work doing to it in the equivalent."
And you're going back to your friend who got bought out, kind of a little bit forced, and became a millionaire. It's like, it's not quite enough. I'm only 40, and it's a long life.
I know that's really, there'll be someone out there that will be like, "I don't cry for you."
And every business owner should write on a postcard what they would sell out for, and they put it in an envelope and put it in a drawer. So maybe an offer. I mean, you don't know. An offer might come through that is blindingly tempting. And if it's very near that number you put on the card, go for it. You don't just take it. But also having the number on a card in an envelope, if you do go through the trade sale with the beauty parade and everything, and then during that pressure of the negotiation period, and you've still got that figure in the back of the mind, and then because when the deal is signed and that figure is pretty near to or spot on to what you'd said or set out years ago, like it's pretty like intentional, then you'll have no regret, because a lot of numbers are thrown around, and you don't want to go like, "Should have hung on for more," or something. You're just like, "No, I was happy with that. That's all I ever wanted."
We've exited some of the smaller businesses that we've got involved with, some subsidiary companies. So we did things like call answering, admin services, VAs and things like that, So we did a lot of that stuff, and those our partners in those businesses have made us offers, and we had the equivalent of the number in the drawer, essentially, that I thought, at these stages, this is what I would probably sell out for, and it gives us a decent return. Because with those smaller deals, I always wary that I might have 5 years in my mind, but they might only have 2 years in their mind. So, and they don't always show their cards. So we have a kind of a 2-year figure and a 5-year figure in a drawer somewhere. With what we would exit for, and they're disproportionate as well. The earlier they come to me and say I'd like it, generally speaking, the higher that is, because it's harder for me to value at that moment, because I haven't had that time to really get my teeth into that business. So.
Amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's been
good.
really great having you on.
Yeah,
be lovely to see where you are in like a year's time or whatever.
Invite me back.
Yeah. Yeah, and if anybody wants to perhaps have some consultancy from yourself, where do they go to? What's the website? And
I do have a website,
yeah.
concordianova.co.uk.
Yeah.
Quite simple.
Yeah, okay. And you got capacity at the moment, I presume? But if you want,
Yes, hopefully.
Yeah.
I'm trying to convert a few at the moment.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So if there's anybody in their position where they're a bit stuck with their business, wherever you are on your journey with that, whether it's about discovering what your goal is, or maybe you are already looking at it, maybe give Lindsay a shout and
or follow me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I like writing on
yeah,
LinkedIn.
Exactly.
Lindsay Brown.
Okay. Head over to LinkedIn even, and yeah, try your website as well if anyone's interested in that. So it's been really nice having you on.
Thank you, Matt.
No problem.
Thank you.